Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's down in the description, the direct service line for you to me and my crew with your purchase questions about this and any watch you see here on Watchbox Reviews. And today we are discussing the Vintage Omega Seamaster Chronograph reference 176.007, cataloged between approximately 1972 and 1976. It's a cushion case 70s style chronograph with the legendary Lemania 1040 automatic chronograph movement inside, doing business as Omega caliber 1340. That was the first automatic chronograph caliber used by Omega and a real pioneer in that genre. You can see the case is relatively compact, measuring 38.5 millimeters from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, not including crown or pushers. In terms of thickness, it's chunky, mostly because of the box section plexiglass that sits atop, so it's 15.6 millimeters thick. It will fit underneath the jacket cuff, and from lug to lug, the watch measures 43 millimeters with an uncommonly broad 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. That was forward-looking design by the standards of the 70s. You can see the watch features an Omega factory bracelet. It is Omega Bracelet reference 1170 with 653 end links, so you can verify that right there. And as you can see, in outstanding condition with the Omega logo still deep and distinct externally. Internally, you can confirm that is a reference 1170 bracelet, Omega factory, and it features remarkably crisp closure. In the modern era, when you close this one and you open it, you still feel that distinct snap and you hear it. There are multiple different gradients of sizing. As you can see, several different divots have been drilled, so you can really size this one precisely with a strap tool just by moving the bracelet inside of the clasp. If you wish, there are removable links, and they are sized using pins and sleeves, so you'll need a punch and a block if you wish to size that particular bracelet. Now, the timepiece features simple but strong lines. It's that 70s cushion case, so you have satin finish on the lug hoods as well as the top of what would conventionally be described as the bezel. In truth, the watch has no separate bezel component. The case is one large block. Polished flanks with a wonderful fluid slope from the center off to the lugs, and you can see rounded peaks to the lugs where they abut the integrated end link of the bracelet. You have the Omega logo in the crown. You have a correct vintage Omega crown and a correct vintage Omega plexiglass. It features some scratches that can be worked out with a pencil eraser, and we'll probably remove those before delivery, but it is an Omega factory plexiglass with the Omega logo at center, and it is the original tritium dial. In fact, and we'll get a little bit closer here, you can see that the dial is beginning to go a little bit tropical, and these dials don't turn brown when they go tropical, they turn purple. So you can see the original blue, but you can also see that there's a sort of metallic purple sheen that is gradually overtaking the blue elements of the dial. Now, just to give you a better sense of the watch on the wrist, I talked about it being 43 millimeters from lug to lug and 38.5 millimeters in diameter, so I should probably demonstrate what that means. On my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. You can see how the watch wears. It's really not that tall on the wrist in spite of the 15.6 millimeter thickness. This one can easily slip underneath the cuff because a lot of the thickness just nestles down and into your wrist. A handsome looking watch that looks dramatically larger on the wrist than its 43 millimeter lug-to-lug dimension. It wears securely because this bracelet has retained all of its original factory integrity. So the bracelet hasn't quite aged the way the average vintage bracelet continuously used will. Now, because of the Lemania 1040 movement inside, you have a radial 60 minutes indicator. This was a feature later kicked over to the Lemania 5100, and so you'll be familiar with that radial 60 minute indicator from many Lemania 5100 powered watches, as the 1040 is pretty rare and not often seen. You have a 12-hour counter for the chronograph, so you have radial seconds, radial 60 minutes, 12 hours, and then you have a coaxial display of constant seconds. You can see the constant seconds superimposed over a 24-hour scale, and so that 24-hour scale is not a GMT. It relates to the hour hand at center and lets you know, for example, whether we are approaching 11 at night or 11 in the morning. As you can see, the little red index indicates we're approaching 24 or midnight, so right now we're just slightly past 10:35, almost 10:36. So that is a 24-hour sub-register. The watch does feature a quick set date. It does not feature hacking seconds, but in every other regard, the Caliber 1340, as it was known in Omega parlance, was a breakthrough. It was Omega's first automatic chronograph. It featured a bearing system for the rotor rather than the more common jeweled staff at the time, so it was tougher. It beat away at 28,800 vibrations per hour. This American market watch features a 17 jewel movement and an automatic winding 40-hour power reserve. It was one of the finest lateral clutch and cam operated chronographs ever made, and the quality of Lemagne's cam chronographs compares with a lot of the column wheel chronographs from the day. So when you actuate this system, it feels just as crisp as a column wheel, and that's down to the industrial might of Omega and Lemagne in union. A watch that in its day was considered to be water resistant and swimmable. I recommend you stay away from the waves. What an old Seamaster needs to find is safe harbor on a dry wrist that respects it. A historically important watch and a wonderful past design. You can see this 176.007. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com.